Welcome to Before AGI. You know we love to take listener suggestions for these deep dives, and, well, this one's been requested a lot.
Hmm.
How is AI impacting the world of disability?
And especially in the job market.
Exactly.
That's where a lot of the anxiety and the excitement really seems to be.
Absolutely. So we've been doing a lot of research on this,
Yeah.
a ton of really interesting research papers, some policy reports, and we even got to interview a few experts.
It is fascinating stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me
Okay.
is just how many different AI solutions are being developed.
There really are.
And, some of them are specifically to help people with, particular disabilities to overcome certain challenges that they face.
Yeah, like really disability-centered
Right.
solutions.
Like, just to give a couple of examples.
Sure.
AI-powered wheelchairs.
Oh, yeah. But
Using image recognition to navigate, really complex environments.
it's like almost science fiction coming to life.
Right. It's incredible, the kind of independence and mobility that could provide.
Huge. Yeah, and it's not just about mobility either.
Yeah.
We're seeing brain-computer interfaces
Oh, wow.
that are letting people with paralysis control devices with their thoughts.
It's incredible how fast this technology is moving.
I know, right? It's really changing how we think about what's possible.
Absolutely. And it's not all, super high-tech solutions like that.
True.
There's also some AI tools that are being developed just to make, everyday tasks easier and more accessible.
Like what kind of things are you thinking of?
Well, one that comes to mind is real-time captioning.
Oh, yeah, for people with hearing impairments.
Right. And it's amazing how AI is making it possible for those folks to really, follow conversations, participate more fully in meetings,
Absolutely.
social gatherings, all sorts of things.
Breaking down those communication barriers.
And then another example that really stood out to me was speech recognition software. That's been designed to understand people with speech impairments,
Oh, yeah.
like dysarthria.
So it can really pick up on their unique vocal patterns.
Right. And that can really open up so many possibilities
It's really
for communication and interaction.
I think this idea of environment adaptation solutions is also really fascinating.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the next thing I wanted to bring up.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think it's really interesting how AI is being used to kind of make the world itself more inclusive.
Yeah. I love that framing. Instead of focusing on the individual and their disability, we can think about how to adapt the environment to make it more accessible.
Right. And a perfect example of that is software that translates complex text into plain language.
Yes. For people with cognitive disabilities, this can make a huge difference in their ability to understand and process information.
You really can.
Yeah.
And then another one I was reading about, which I thought was amazing, was these AI-powered systems that use Bluetooth beacons or really sophisticated algorithms
Oh, wow.
to guide people with visual impairments through buildings.
Wow. Imagine that navigating an unfamiliar space with confidence and independence.
Right. And it's that kind of technology that can truly be life-changing for people.
Absolutely.
And then there's also AI being used to streamline the process of getting workplace accommodations,
Oh, that's huge.
which could benefit everyone, really, not just people with disabilities.
Right. Making the process more efficient and effective.
Exactly.
And ultimately creating a more inclusive and supportive work environment for all employees.
Yeah, okay, so we've got AI helping people navigate the world, improve communication, and even make workplaces more accommodating.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground already.
But then there's this idea of meta-level solutions, which,
Right.
to be honest, when I first read about it, I was a little confused. I wasn't quite sure what it meant.
Yeah, it's kind of a mouthful.
It is. So can you kind of break it down for me and our listeners?
Sure. So these are solutions that are working behind the scenes, you could say, using AI to analyze data and improve processes that indirectly benefit people with disabilities.
Oh, okay. So it's not directly interacting with the person's disability, but to using data to kind of create more effective interventions or support systems.
Exactly. It's a more holistic approach, you could say.
Interesting. So, for example, like those smart canes we were talking about earlier?
Yes. AI can be used to analyze the data that's being collected from those canes to help therapists monitor their patients' progress and adjust their treatment plans as needed.
Wow. So it's like AI is acting as this invisible hand guiding things in the right direction?
That's a great way to put it, and it's not just physical therapy either.
Oh, really?
Some researchers are exploring how AI could be used to predict mental health challenges,
Oh, wow.
which could lead to earlier interventions and hopefully better outcomes.
That's so important because we know that early intervention can make such a difference in someone's life.
Absolutely.
Now, while all of these solutions are incredibly exciting, I know that there are also concerns about the potential downsides of AI, particularly when it comes to job security.
It's a valid concern.
Could AI actually make it more difficult for some people with disabilities to find and keep jobs?
That's a big question, and it's important to acknowledge that while AI creates new opportunities, it also has the potential to disrupt existing jobs.
Right.
And we need to think carefully about how to ensure that this technological transition is equitable and benefits everyone, including those with disabilities.
So it's not just about developing these amazing tools,
Right.
but it's also about making sure that they're used responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. We need to be mindful of potential unintended consequences and work to mitigate any negative impacts on marginalized groups,
Absolutely.
including people with disabilities.
And I imagine that means involving people with disabilities in the design and development process from the very beginning.
Absolutely. Their lived experience is essential for creating solutions that truly meet their needs and don't unintentionally create new barriers.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've seen how AI can be used to create some incredible solutions for people with disabilities. But we've also acknowledged the potential risks and the need for really thoughtful and ethical development.
I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Yeah.
In the next part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
we'll take a closer look at some of those challenges and potential pitfalls of AI when it comes to disability inclusion.
Sounds good. Stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back. Before we really dove into all those amazing solutions, we touched on some of the potential downsides of AI for people with disabilities.
Yeah, I think it's really important to acknowledge that no technology is perfect.
Right.
And AI is definitely no exception.
And one of the biggest concerns that was raised in all these sources was the issue of algorithmic bias.
That's something I've heard a lot about, but I'm still not entirely sure I understand what it is.
Yeah.
Can you kind of break it down for me and our listeners?
Of course. So basically, algorithmic bias happens when an AI system
Okay.
makes unfair or inaccurate predictions or decisions based on biases that are present in the data that it was trained on. Okay, so if an AI system is being used to evaluate job applicants,
Yeah.
and the data that was used to train that AI reflects existing biases
Right.
in hiring practices,
Exactly.
then it could end up perpetuating those biases.
Precisely. For example, if historically there's been a bias against hiring people with gaps in their employment history,
Right.
and an AI system is trained on that data, it might unfairly penalize applicants with disabilities
Yeah.
who may have had periods of unemployment due to health reasons.
So it's like the AI is inheriting the biases of the past.
Exactly. And it really highlights the importance of using diverse, representative data sets to train these algorithms. We need to be very intentional about making sure that the data reflects the world that we want to create,
Right.
not the world as it has been.
That makes a lot of sense. So biased data can lead to biased outcomes.
Unfortunately, yes.
Are there any other kind of potential challenges we need to be aware of?
Another concern is the accessibility of the AI tools themselves.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which is a bit ironic.
It does seem kind of ironic, right?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about AI as a solution for these accessibility challenges.
Yeah.
But if those AI tools themselves aren't accessible,
Right.
they could end up creating new barriers.
It's a valid point.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a visually impaired person trying to use an AI-powered tool
Okay.
that relies heavily on visual elements and doesn't offer alternative ways to interact with it.
Yeah.
That could be incredibly frustrating.
It would be.
And it could prevent them from using that tool altogether.
So it's not enough to just develop these amazing AI tools.
No.
We also need to make sure that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can actually use them.
Exactly. And that means involving people with disabilities in the design and testing of these tools from the very beginning.
Right, from day one.
Yeah.
Are there any other potential pitfalls we should be thinking about?
Yes. The sources also mentioned concerns about privacy.
Oh, right, privacy. That's a big one these days. AI systems often collect and analyze vast amounts of data. So could this be a problem for people with disabilities?
Potentially, right.
It's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
For example, if an AI system is collecting data about someone's health condition, there's a risk that this information could be used to discriminate against them, maybe by employers or insurance companies.
That's scary. It really is like a double-edged sword.
It is.
AI has all this potential to be so beneficial, but there are also these risks that we need to be aware of
Right.
and address proactively.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations.
Yeah.
We need to be thinking critically about the ethical implications of AI
Yeah.
and making sure that its development and deployment are guided by principles of fairness,
Right.
inclusivity, and respect for human rights.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's really about how we use it.
Exactly. We need to be mindful of the potential unintended consequences
Hmm.
and work to ensure that AI is used to empower people with disabilities, not to create new forms of discrimination or exclusion.
That's a good point. Now, are there any positive signs out there?
Mhm.
Are governments or organizations taking steps to kind of address these risks?
Thankfully, yes, several sources pointed to some promising developments in this area.
Okay. Yeah.
For example, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities explicitly states that AI systems should be designed and used in a way that respects the rights and dignity of people with disabilities.
That's encouraging. Are there any specific examples of governments taking action?
Absolutely. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR,
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
includes provisions that protect the personal data of people with disabilities.
Well, that's good.
And there's a growing movement to incorporate accessibility considerations into national AI strategies around the world.
It sounds like the legal and regulatory landscape is starting to catch up.
Yeah, it is.
But this rapid pace of AI development.
It is, but we still have a long way to go.
Okay.
A lot of the existing regulations were written before AI became so prevalent.
Right, so we need to keep pushing for these updated regulations
Yes.
that specifically address these unique challenges
Absolutely.
and opportunities that are presented by AI
Mm-hmm.
in relation to disability inclusion.
I couldn't agree more. We need to be proactive in shaping the future of AI to ensure that it's a force for good in the lives of people with disabilities.
I'm feeling a bit more optimistic now. It seems like there's this growing awareness of the risks
Yes,
and a willingness to address them.
definitely. And I think it's important to emphasize that these sources aren't just pointing out problems.
Right.
They're also highlighting potential solutions and innovations that are already making a difference.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear about. I'm eager to kind of dig into those a bit more.
Yeah.
So in this final part of our deep dive, let's explore some of those specific solutions and innovations that are giving us reasons to be hopeful
Okay, let's do it.
about the future of AI and disability inclusion. So we spent the last two parts really unpacking some complex issues around AI and disability. We talked about the potential downsides
Mm-hmm.
and the need to proceed cautiously and ethically. But now I'm ready for some good news.
Okay.
What are some of the exciting solutions and innovations that are kind of emerging in this space?
Well, one area that's particularly promising is the development of new work opportunities specifically tailored for people with disabilities.
Oh, that's great.
We talked about some of the potential job displacement, but AI is also creating new jobs, and some of these jobs are actually a really good fit for people with disabilities.
Yeah, one of the sources mentioned a company that's actively recruiting neurodivergent individuals for AI data labeling jobs.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
I thought that was fascinating because it kind of flips the script on how we typically think about certain conditions.
It does.
Right, like instead of seeing it as a limitation,
Mhm.
they're recognizing the unique strengths and talents that neurodivergent individuals can bring to the table.
The focus and attention to detail that's often associated with neurodiversity
Right.
are incredibly valuable in the field of AI.
Especially for tasks like data labeling, which require a high degree of accuracy and precision.
Exactly. And it's not just about filling a need in the AI industry. It's about creating meaningful and sustainable employment opportunities for people who might have faced barriers in more traditional job markets.
Absolutely. It's about inclusivity and recognizing the value that diverse perspectives bring to any field.
I love that.
Another solution that caught my eye was the development of what they call alternative job matching tools.
Oh, yeah. Those are really interesting.
So traditional job matching systems often rely heavily on resumes and keywords.
Yeah, which can be a real disadvantage for people with disabilities.
Right, because those gaps could be due to health reasons or other factors that are completely out of their control.
Exactly. And these alternative tools are using AI to look beyond the resume, focusing on skills, abilities, and potential rather than just past experience.
So it's not just about what you've done, but what you're capable of doing.
Exactly.
I was reading about some tools that analyze data that's completely different from a traditional resume, like eye movement patterns during tasks or responses to personality questionnaires.
It's a fascinating approach.
Yeah.
By using AI to assess a wider range of data points, we can create a more comprehensive and accurate picture of an individual's capabilities.
And hopefully that leads to a more equitable and inclusive hiring process.
That's the goal. It's about leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone has a fair shot at finding meaningful employment.
Now, beyond those specialized tools and job matching platforms, these sources also emphasize the importance of making mainstream AI tools accessible to people with disabilities.
Right.
It's about recognizing that accessibility benefits everyone, not just those with disabilities.
Absolutely.
Like, a great example is voice assistants, like Siri and Alexa.
Oh, yeah.
They've become so popular
Hugely popular.
and can be particularly helpful for people with mobility or visual impairments.
Definitely. But that only works if those tools are designed with inclusivity in mind from the start.
Right. It can't just be an afterthought.
No, it has to be baked into the design process from day one.
And it's not just about voice assistants. Think about closed captions on videos.
Oh, that's a good one.
Originally intended for people with hearing impairments, but now they're used by all sorts of people.
Right, for all sorts of reasons.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how designing for accessibility can lead to broader benefits
Absolutely.
and a more inclusive experience for everyone.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
So it's not just about creating these special tools for people with disabilities.
Right.
It's about making sure that all AI tools are designed with accessibility and inclusivity as core principles.
I think that's a great way to put it. We need to move away from this idea of fixing disability and instead focus on creating a world where technology empowers everyone,
Yeah.
regardless of their abilities.
I love that it's about using technology to create a more equitable and just world for all.
Absolutely, and it's something that we all have a role to play in, whether we're tech professionals, policymakers, or just everyday citizens.
Right.
We can all contribute to this vision.
So what are some specific things that our listeners can do to make a difference?
Well, for those working in the tech industry,
Okay.
it's about adopting inclusive design principles and prioritizing accessibility throughout the development process.
And involving people with disabilities in that process?
Absolutely. Their lived experience is invaluable.
Yeah.
They can provide insights and feedback that might not be obvious to someone who hasn't faced those challenges firsthand.
What about policymakers? What role can they play in kind of fostering a more inclusive AI landscape?
They can promote research and development in this area,
Okay.
create incentives for companies to prioritize accessibility, and establish clear standards and regulations that ensure that AI is being developed and used responsibly and ethically.
What about for those of us who aren't tech professionals or policymakers? What can we do?
We can educate ourselves about these issues,
Okay.
support organizations that are working to promote AI for good, and hold companies accountable for creating inclusive and accessible products and services.
It's about using our voices and our purchasing power to shape the future of AI.
Exactly. It's a collective effort.
Yeah.
AI has this potential to create a more equitable and just world, but it's up to all of us to make sure that happens.
This has been an incredibly insightful and thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this exploration of AI and disability as fascinating as we did. Don't forget to subscribe to Before AGI for more deep dives into the world of artificial intelligence. And if you're interested in learning more about how to use AI in your own work, check out Ian Ochieng AI on YouTube for some great tutorials and insights. Until next time.